welcome everybody to the Leaning Tower Y, the second Tuesday hypnosis meeting that we have every second Tuesday. We've been meeting at the tower for over 50 years. But now we're Zooming the tower. So it's modern electronics has helped us through here. We have tonight with us Jenna Allin, and she is a trauma recovery hypnotherapist, and she's developed mindfulness based emotional clearing. She's we're gonna need to talk to her as a doctor pretty soon because she's a PhD student in psychology. So she's going to be Dr. Jenna. So that's exciting. And how far away are you with that?
I have about 3 years left, so I'm still kind of in the beginning.
Okay. Well, on the journey. That's great.
Yep.
We can still think of you as Dr. Jenna, so that'll be good. So you get used to it.
Thank you.
Anyway, she's here to share her wisdom and teach us how to modernize our minds. Okay, super. Well, thank you all for coming tonight for Jenna's talk. And so we'll take it away, Jenna. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Can you guys see that, my slide?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So this presentation is all about building stress resilience, and we'll talk about exactly what that is. And I'll tell you a little bit about me too. But first, I just want to say that today's world has been absolutely rocked by the current world events. And I think it's imperative that we are in a state of personal transformation that matches the transformations that are being asked of us in our hopefully responsive and adaptable lives. We want to be in that transformation in our systems and our processes and the way we're dealing with life, and also rolling with the changes and easily learning new skills like technology, websites, high-tech phones, and all of that. And a lot of people over 40 have shut their minds down to tech or tech upgrades. And, I find myself even using excuses like I don't want to, or I can't, or it's too hard. And really, for a lot of people, this just signifies an overload and no more space to fit any of this stuff. And it would be easier and more desired, and you'd have a lot more motivation toward it if your mind space was decluttered. And a lot of my clients are finding that. And not even just with tech, but with our adaptability in terms of personal psychology. And being able to be zen no matter what, and peaceful no matter what atrocities and elections and pandemics are all around us, right? No matter what thwarted plans or schedule changes or entire life changes are required of us. Even when experiencing death and tragedy, I have found that I feel immense gratitude more than I feel loss now. And that's because of the methods that I'm about to tell you about and show you about. So a little bit about me before I move to the next slide. I am Jenna Allin. I have worked as a trauma educator for professionals and have been doing trauma recovery hypnotherapy since about 2010, 2011, so about 10 years or so. I have been a practitioner of mindfulness, which is what we're going to talk about today. That means just practicing mindfulness since about 2016 or so. And like Don said, I'm currently a doctorate student getting my PhD in psychology, and my dissertation will be on mindfulness. I have a bachelor's in psych, and I'm certified in trauma recovery as well. And my PhD focuses on teaching psychology. Because I am an educator and by heart. Outside of my coaching business with trauma survivors, I work with individuals, businesses, I work with corporations, communities, and I provide mindfulness instruction. So that's where a lot of this information comes from. And I was so happy to be able to put this together for you guys, because I can include a lot of the things that I'm not necessarily able to include when I'm talking to, businesses and things like that. I'm able to get a little more on the in-depth and subconscious and, all of that kind of side. So, and talk about energies and things like that, whereas in other presentation spaces, I can't normally. So I'm excited about that. So I want you to think about what you know right now, and maybe you don't, but think about what your ideas have been about mindfulness. Even as I said the words maybe 3 times or 4 times already, what feelings come to mind? What are your ideas about meditation? And have you heard about the difference between meditation and mindfulness, right? Have you tried meditating? Or maybe you're an advanced meditator. Right? So just thinking about what your thoughts are, your perceptions are about mindfulness and meditation. And also thinking about I want to kind of set up a scenario here for you, or set up some reference points. So think right now about your biggest challenge as it's related to stress. Maybe your biggest challenge of stress is parenting or work or partnership or family relationships, or a hobby you're pursuing, or boredom. And so just thinking about, if you had to label maybe your top 1 or 3 areas of stress, what would they be? And thinking about your biggest challenges as it relates to following your creative passions and making your career or hobby goals come true. And think about the things that you've maybe tried in order to find balance around those stressors. And think about your biggest challenges as it relates to body wellness and the things that you may have tried in order to find balance there. Right, so that's just to jog your mind, and you'll be able to see as we go along how some of this can relate particularly to your life and these areas of stress for you. And we'll often find the ego saying, this isn't, for me, when really it's the exact thing that we need. It's just that our fears stop us from wanting to change. And so transforming our relationship with the mind and taking away its control over our lives is imperative. Even if we want to open up to something like mindfulness and transform our mind, we've got to be able to open our minds in a way, right? We spend gazillions of dollars to upgrade our technology, especially corporations and big businesses, right? But we are not so good at giving the same type of attention to ourselves, and companies aren't so great at giving it to their employees either, right? This presentation, by the way, before I brought it here, was geared toward corporations and things like that. So I may just kind of occasionally refer to business, and maybe, or hopefully you guys know someone that this might apply to, or it applies to you yourself. But the mind needs upgrades too, just like those digital upgrades and technology upgrades that are happening, or else we're just running on old programming, and the processes in the world continue to upgrade and our minds just can't keep up unless we come out of the analog world and into the digital age inside of our mind, just as it is outside in the digital world. And so if we think about analog signals, they are sensitive to pressure and noise. We're going to date ourselves here, and I'm a little older than maybe you would think. Just as a vinyl record or a magnetic tape, a cassette tape or VCR tape, right? They degrade over time. You try and play that song that you played 100 times on your record, and it sounds wonky, right? It starts to get all scratchy. And so that degradation makes it impossible to be able to fully recover the original signal. So we have to think of analog signals as basically degrading in their journey. But in the digital world, things proliferate. They go viral, they extrapolate, they reconfigure, right? The digital age is not degrading over time. It is not. It is only going to expand and get bigger. And our minds have to be able to keep up with those demands, right? So we have to think of, if we were to compare this in mindfulness, analog is like autopilot. It's when we're just running on autopilot. When I'm running on autopilot, like let's say with driving, I'm just on autopilot. I'm going to miss my exit. I'm going to, maybe not do something right, not go at the right time when I could have, right? That analog, that autopilot is just running on that analog old system. And the digital is a way of upgrading our mind for responsiveness, adaptability, all of that. And we do that through mindfulness, which I'm going to teach you in a moment. So I'm in love with octopuses. Octopi? I think that's how you say it. And this picture was really cool. I love that. Doing our life on autopilot will decrease our ability to respond to unique situations, just like driving, right? I have to be able to respond to a unique situation. If I'm just driving on autopilot, I'm going to be like, I have to slam on my brakes, right? Or something like that. So autopilot decreases that responsiveness, and then we make mistakes, and more so than if we were mindfully engaged. If my mind is just full of driving, I'm not going to make those mistakes. I'm going to be defensively driving. I'm going to be looking 3 cars ahead at the brake lights. I'm going to be, really paying attention to those things, right? And a quick note about upgrading the mind too, it will often feel like a downgrade at first, because we do always have to strip things down and get back to basics when we're doing a reboot. So like, think about cleaning your closet. We can't clean the closet without taking out a lot of stuff, if not all of it, right? That was inside. And I don't know too much about programming in the digital world, but I would assume that it's similar, right? That, even when I have to go get my computer repaired, he's like, okay, did you download everything? Because I'm going to wipe it, right? I'm just going to wipe everything, and then we're going to start over. So that's kind of what mindfulness brings. We have to take out the trash in the recesses of the subconscious mind, and then we can see what programs have been running in the background that aren't even necessary, right? And so to me, it is absolutely necessary that if we want to make space for the upgrades that will bring us a more joyful life, and to experience even the biggest challenges with gratitude, then we need to make space, right? I really can't tell you how good it has felt for me to learn how to just roll with the punches, and things that used to make me go, oh no, or oh, that dang thing, or frustrate me, I have zero reaction to now. And we really don't realize how much resistance is happening until we sit with the mind and we learn how to categorize and label our thoughts effectively. We learn how to develop a different relationship with our mind. We learn how to train our mind to engage with our pain differently, to engage with our losses differently. And until you experience this level of peace, I cannot even describe it to you. No matter how peaceful you think you are right now, you would be completely surprised to experience the benefits of a mindfulness practice. Even Buddhist monks who have been practicing and teaching mindfulness since they were 11 will keep finding new levels of Zen. I used to work out of a Buddhist temple doing my sessions, and I got to hang out with a lot of the monks and learn this about them, that they continue to experience even deeper levels of peace throughout their life as they continue their practice. By cleaning out their closet, right? Think about it. It doesn't just stay clean. Periodically, we've got to go back and clean it again, right? So it gets kind of full. And so exercises in mindfulness will teach us how to do that. So I'm going to guide you all through a little mindfulness exercise so you can just kind of get comfy for a moment. I'll let you know when it's time to close your eyes, but you're just getting comfy. This is just a practice to help bring us here into our body in this moment. It'll be just about 3 minutes long or something. Finding a comfortable posture. If having both feet on the floor is available to you, then go ahead and do that. And then allowing the eyes to close gently if that feels okay, or just lowering the gaze. And bringing the attention into the areas of contact that your feet are having with the floor. And just feeling into your feet. Noticing the solidity of the ground under your feet. Maybe feeling where your shoes or socks or feet are in contact with the ground, and what that feels like. And now moving on to the thighs and the buttocks and noticing where they have contact with the chair. Just allowing the chair and the ground to hold and support your body without you needing to do anything. It's kind of nice to just tune into that support that's always there, but we don't notice much. And then moving the attention to your back. Noticing the different areas of your back, maybe because of the curvature of the spine, there's a difference between where there's contact and where there's none. Maybe not. And then moving the attention to the hands. Feeling into the hands. Maybe noticing the position of the hands. Or noticing what they're touching. And you can even ask yourself, how do I know I have hands without looking? We just know. We can feel the hands from within. And then opening the awareness and feeling your entire body sitting here. In this moment, on this chair. And then for the last few moments of our short meditation, bringing the attention to the breath. Noticing, where do you feel the breath the most? We're not changing the breath in any way. We're not going to deepen it or slow it down. We're not manipulating or controlling anything in mindfulness. It actually teaches us to let go of control. Just observe. Do you feel the air the most at your nostrils, where the air comes in, or at the back of the throat? Maybe you feel it most in the rise and fall of the chest or in the belly. And then using that place as the anchor for your attention, this is where you come back to over and over whenever the mind wanders off. Just letting the breath breathe itself. No need to make it any other way than it wants to be. And even when the mind wanders, you just receive it. You just notice it without judging that you should be meditating or that you're doing something wrong. Just notice and celebrate that you had a mindful moment and bring your awareness back to the breath. Just again and again, bringing that attention back to the breath. And in a moment, I'll ring a bell and that'll end our short mindfulness practice. And you can open your eyes when you're ready. Tuning in to how you feel now. Tuning into how it feels to focus in this way. Some people have a positive experience of meditation, and they feel good. And some people feel more anxiety or more of whatever feelings were kind of in the background because they're making their way to the forefront now. And now we can actually face them, look at them, and deal with them, right? And so tune in to how does it feel to focus in this way? How does the mind and body feel now compared to before? When we are doing mindfulness, we are working to strengthen our attention muscle. And when our muscle of focus is strong, we don't get so overwhelmed. We conserve our resources and our brain power for where it's needed. And then our actions are more intuitive. Solutions just present themselves in the mind. And that's because we've taken time to make space for them. And for my more spiritual clients, I talk to them as making space for the divine to enter and allowing ourselves to be led by this force rather than be led by this force, right? And it is, I can tell you from experience that it is the most freeing experience. And that's why monks are so zen, because, because they are allowing the space, and then they're following that intuition, they're following that guidance and where they're led, or divine, or whatever it is you believe in, right? But obviously none of this has to be spiritual or divine. I don't teach it at all this way in business. But as we watch our mind in this way over and over, when we watch our mind, when we come to our practice 5 minutes every day or a few times a week, we see that there's a lot going on. There are so many programs in the forefront, in the background, and it's not much different than when your computer freezes because you've got too much running, or you have to delete the cookies or whatever all that stuff means, right? I have worked with a number of people in the business sector, one from Coca-Cola particularly, who have run themselves into the ground because of their refusal to ground. And I've seen it over and over again. If humans can choose to, if they continue to choose to stay in the mind space all day, lost in thought and demanding so much of the mind, eventually they're brought back down to grounded, and it just is not of their choice at that point. Mental breakdown, physical breakdown is required in order to assess the system. And then we say, oh, I was doing too much, or, oh, I was, right? But mindfulness allows us to say, like, ooh, that would be too much for me to do. I'm not going to take that on. Or, like mindfulness helps us to know the difference between that ego mind leading things and the wholesome mind leading things. And that woman, and sometimes these breakdowns of the system aren't recoverable. Sometimes they're recoverable and sometimes not, right? Sometimes we have to just trash the whole computer, right? And the woman from Coca-Cola, she has taken years to just function at average again and not be in a mental institution and just function at average, be much less the above average corporate rock star that she was for many years of her life. Right. So our minds are like our tech. If we let the system failures pile up without doing anything about them, then we'll be forced to. We'll be forced to do something about them eventually. Okay. So what is the science behind a strategy like something as simple as grounding meditation? Like, how can that be so transformational, Jenna? Well, it's been proven, it's been studied deeply over the past 35 years since Jon Kabat-Zinn brought mindfulness to the US to be studied not as a spiritual practice, but as a way of developing resiliency and skills for managing life and emotions and all of that stuff. It's been proven that because there's a concrete set of behaviors and skills that are associated with resilience, that people can learn to be more resilient. And there's a lot of factors that contribute, like optimism, the ability to stay balanced, to manage strong or difficult emotions, having a sense of safety, a strong support system, things like that. And you may think that you have your emotions under control, but I don't have to tell this group so much that there is a lot happening in the subconscious mind at every moment, and that every decision we make is tainted by our past experiences. And so that unwholesome mind is the one that isn't deciding based on intuition and what's right and healthy risk taking. It's the one deciding based on fear responses, cultural conditioning, all of those things. And even hypnosis, I did 3 years of deep hypnosis work every week with Carl Mollison, and we had amazing, amazing progress. But even that did not bring the level of self-awareness and peace that mindfulness does. And it did not help me. It did help me a whole lot, but it didn't help me like mindfulness did to really see those responses and conditioning and all of that, and to start to change it massively. And so when we're deciding based on fear, that's you, my tech-averse people. That's, you who are parent caregiving and finding it challenging. That's you who's overwhelmed by responsibilities. That's you who's not taking the class or eating the healthy meal you want to, right? And so we have to get in touch with, where is that wholesome mind? Where's that line drawn, and how will I know it? And we make the space for it. We make space in a grounding meditation like this. If we're doing this on a regular basis, and not only this, mindfulness is a lot more than this. It's a strategy of all kinds of steps and different things. It's mindful walking, mindful eating, mindful showering. It's a lifestyle change. It's not just a technique that you do. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. On the business side of things, the scope, the scale, and the speed of business is increasing at such a rapid rate right now. And then add in the stress of a global crisis, and things are, people are expected to be hyper connected, responsive to work at all times. And that's really taxing. And so stress and burnout are related to this increasing pace and the intensity in adjusting to these new lifestyles and things, right? So ultimately, I'm telling you that you can get more out of your life by doing nothing. And so I love to connect manifesting and mindfulness, because I'm a rebel, and all of mindfulness says, let go of all the goals. It's not about manifesting. And really, if you think about it, this focus muscle that we're working on is vital to the manifestation of what we want in life. I started to teach law of attraction around 2012 or so, before I even knew what mindfulness was. And I taught that your point of attraction is this vibrational frequency from which you're attracting things. If you have a low frequency, you'll attract drama, illness, lack. High frequency, supportive relationships, health, wealth, right? I also taught that the law of attraction is always working and attracting life experiences, people, and circumstances that match our frequency, but doing so in order to show how we need to change that frequency, where the frequencies need to be adjusted and changed in order to activate the law of attraction working in favor of our desires, right? And so the principles that I taught mostly in law of attraction was, one, that you have to be in tune with yourself. And I didn't call it the wholesome and unwholesome mind, but I called it ego and spirit-led place, right? Or ego and intuition-led place, right? So we have to be in tune with ourselves. I taught also that we have to be able to 100% accept what's happening in any moment right in front of us in order to jump from that springboard into the next place, and willing to work with what is there, right? And so mindfulness teaches us to be so in tune with ourselves that we are able to tell the difference, and this creates this ripple effect that changes all of our actions in life, all the ways that we're interacting with people subconsciously, and we don't even realize it. And the unhealthy patterns that we've been stuck in, they start to dissipate. And then we can naturally develop skillful means, and we can naturally align ourselves with our abilities, for our innate abilities for healing and transformation in this way. I'll pause there for a second and ask if anybody has any questions. because I could just go on and on and on and on. So I have to stop myself sometimes.
Yeah.
Are
Hi.
you using?
I'm sorry. I'll go. Okay. So anyway, thank you. You're so informative. You're giving us so much to think about. You said the phrase mindfully engaged, like when you're driving a car and you're actually looking at the speedometer and where you're going, what your exits are. Is mindfulness more like mindfully engaging your body awareness?
Yes. So mindfulness to me is an embodiment practice.
Okay.
It's all about getting out of the mind and into the body. And I've actually found that as I develop my mindfulness practice, that before anything even happens externally, before my mind even knows, like I'm going to react to something or I'm triggered, my body will feel it. Just like when you kind of sit next to that creepy person on the bus, like you're just like feeling their creepy energy. It's like I feel in my body before I even do that old pattern or think the thought. I can feel like, ooh, something's coming here, right? And so we're mindfully engaged and embodied now. And so now that we're in our body and paying attention to the senses, right, that rise and fall of the breath, and we're training ourselves to be there, we're going to notice when our breath becomes a little bit rapid, or we're going to notice in our chest when our heart is beating a little fast, and we're going to say, wow, I'm really reacting to this, versus blah, 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 you should do it, right? Be able to kind of stop ourselves, right, in that space. So good question. Thank you so much. I hope I answered it.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Did someone else have a question?
I was going to ask if you are using mindfulness as a synonym for meditation, or whether mindfulness is some goal you reach through meditation. A number of people have felt the pressure to not use the word meditation anymore. So if you would expound on that, I'd be grateful.
Yes, excellent question. So mindfulness is a lifestyle. Mindfulness is a way of using meditation in every moment. Meditation is one of the tools that is in mindfulness, and there are tons of different types of meditation out there. So all meditation is not necessarily created equal in terms of mindfulness. Mindfulness will have you facing your thoughts. It will have you focusing on the breath. It will have you sending loving kindness out to your loved ones and to yourself. But mostly not a clearing of the mind, but an acknowledgement of the mind in a new way. And so there's lots of other meditations out there that will have you using imagery, that will have you clearing the mind, which to me, that was my first experience with meditation, was go and clear your mind. I gave that up like really fast because I was like, I can never do this. And that's what mindfulness teaches you. You will never quiet your mind. But here's how we have a new relationship with it, so that it's not so overwhelming, so that it's in the background and your heart is leading instead. So yes, meditation is one of the tools of mindfulness, but mindfulness is a way of living. Thank you. Excellent question. Is there another question, or?
So you're using it as self-awareness.
Yeah. So mindfulness is embodied self-awareness. Yes. Yeah. Kind of a way of like removing the veils that we have to really seeing, they teach in mindfulness that there are these things that cloud our ability to see our mind fully. And when we practice meditation, we end up starting to see our mind fully and say, oh, that's that unwholesome thing, or that's that trigger, or that's the, whatever, that's the fear guiding rather than our heart guiding. Okay. So let's see.
The lower corner. There you go.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
So I've recently been using the saying that, having your conscious mind be aware of the unconscious. And I think that's really important, but almost like what you're saying, mindfulness is more having the unconscious be aware of the conscious.
Ooh. So it's more like in who's it? Eckhart Tolle's book, Power of Now, he talks about being the observer of the mind. And so that's essentially what mindfulness does, is kind of disentangle us. We become infused with the mind. They actually call this cognitive fusion in mindfulness. And we think our thoughts are fact, or we think that they're real. As we think like, oh, this person didn't call me back, they mustn't want to, blah, blah, blah. Or we think, we have assumptions about things and whatnot. We start to assume that our thoughts are fact, when really it's just describe, there's a state that we're feeling and we aren't really aware of it. So I hope that answers your question.
Mm-hmm.
I think I
Good, thank you.
kind of thought, yeah. Okay. Any other question? I love when I have questions. This is so great. Okay. All right, so receptivity and mindfulness. So the law of attraction, right, is all about receiving. It's opening ourselves to receive abundance, receive health, receive money, receive the job or career that we want, the friendship, the whatever it is, right? And mindfulness is this ultimate act of receiving. We are falling into receptivity in a new way, receiving ourselves right where we are. Making space for ourselves. I'm going to sit on this cushion, this chair, this whatever, 5 minutes a day and give myself this time. Gifting myself this time. Universe says, oh, she wants more time. I'm going to give that to her. She must want more time for herself. She's giving herself time, right? Oh, she's giving herself attentive, loving care. She must want more of that. I'm going to give her some more, right? And so the universe gives us more as we send out our signals through this active receiving. Mindfulness seems like this inactive thing, but you are actively receiving yourself. And so you'll start to receive abundance in different ways. And these things are really only accessible through stillness. And when we sit down to do our meditation practice, that's what we're doing, is sitting in a still place so that we can receive whatever's going on. And sometimes we're receiving chaos and we're receiving anxiety and we're receiving, meditation isn't always meant to be this Zen practice while you're doing it, but it's practice because you're getting ready for the big event, the triggering thing, the death in the family, the, whatever that is, the struggle or challenge in your life. You're practicing for that moment so that when those feelings start to stir up, you can be consciously aware of them. And again, I can't tell you how relieving it is to not be those feelings and to watch those feelings and to be able to observe them. It's pretty amazing. So let's talk about a little of the definition of mindfulness and what that is. Jon Kabat-Zinn, he's the pioneer of mindfulness in America. He went and studied in a monastery and then came back and brought it here about 35 years ago. And if you know anything about like psychological science and research, they need about 30 years before they start like coming out with this stuff and putting it in to the mainstream, because there has to be enough studies done and you have to follow people longitudinally. You have to follow them and see what the long-term effects are 8 years, 20 years later from their practices. So that's why now in the past 5 years, you've seen this upsurge of mindfulness kind of everywhere. And that's because he met that 30-year mark and everything kind of exploded. So he defines it as paying attention on purpose and non-judgmentally. And so that paying attention on purpose is all about presence. Our mind is hardly ever in the present. It's mostly rehashing the past or rehearsing the future. Did I say that? Rehashing the past, rehearsing the future. And so when we're in this state of past and future, then we miss the present moment. But now is the only moment we ever have to be alive, to make decisions, to grow, to heal, and be there with and for the people that we love. But most of the time we're just running on autopilot, lost in our thoughts. And oftentimes it even feels like the moment that we're in right now is not worth paying attention to. We'd rather plan a wonderful future ahead, a vacation, when COVID's over, and times that are going to be worth being present to. But when we get there, are we really present? Chances are that we aren't, because our mind is not trained to stay in the present, and it's always looking to the past and the future. I do this when like I plan a big vacation. I'll get there, and then one of the first things I'll always say, next year we should do blah, blah, blah instead. And it's like already my mind is in that next, trip, planning that next big one, right? Or people will often say, oh, I miss when my kids were little. Well, you wouldn't if you didn't miss it. If you were present for it, you wouldn't miss it, right? You wouldn't have to say you missed it if you didn't miss it. So we really only miss the past because we weren't present for those moments, and we want to train our mind to be present. And when we do, we find that time doesn't fly by, but we are given more time. Time expands, and we enter time portals. That's the only way I can explain it, is that time just starts to show up for us, and it's really kind of amazing. And if you think about this, like rehearsing dance that our mind is constantly in, it's like a pull of tug of war. It's this massive energy drain. You're constantly drawing energy from the past and imagining how the future might go, right? But mindfulness puts us in touch with the great mystery, the curiosity for the unknown, and this peaceful tranquility of being able to put down all the responsibility of controlling it by focusing again and again on that breath and not trying to change it, by focusing again and again on that anxiety and not trying to change it, by focusing again and again on that, struggle with somebody or with your work or whatever, focus on it and turning toward it rather than turning away from ourselves, this whole aspect of ourselves, of our being, then we can find that when we're really present, we can put down the past and the future and stop reaching for those answers and trying to control things, right? And that doesn't mean that we start smoking cannabis all day and singing Kumbaya and just happy with doing nothing for our lives. We'll actually get more done. We'll be more productive and more effective when we're taking action from this clarity and this intuition that's coming from us. We'll be a lot more in tune with that and actually getting more done. So that's pretty much the definition, the technical definition of mindfulness. But now we want to look at, okay, what in mindfulness, we want to say what mindfulness and meditation are and aren't. So this is where they get we can use the terms interchangeably a little bit for a second, because neither mindfulness or meditation is relaxation. It's not. We have to get that out of our minds, because you may be more intensely anxious because you finally have sat down and looked at your anxiety for the first time in 20 years or 60 years or however long, right? And so it might be, mindfulness meditation might be deeply relaxing for you at times, and you will experience states of calmness and ease, but it's not our goal. Sometimes we're just not relaxed. We have a challenge going on, or we have something in our lives, and we just are feeling a lot. And so we can't force, and we never want to strive to be in a different state than we are already. And so if I sit down to my meditation practice and I say, I'm going to relax, well, now I'm striving to be relaxed, when really what I need is to look at the tension and non-relaxed state that I'm in, right? Our goal is to be goalless and to just be present with what's here in the moment, and developing some kindness for that, because we don't realize how much we're really harshly judging ourselves and our experiences and our feelings, and resisting them or shutting them down from judgments that they're not right or not worth paying attention to or too painful or whatever that is, right? Mindfulness and meditation are also not a quick fix. Sometimes you'll feel deeply at peace and at home right away when you're first starting, but a lot of times when people are starting their meditation practice, they're bored, they're restless, or they're anxious. It's hard. It's not an easy thing to develop that mindfulness practice in the beginning. And so it really is a process that unfolds over time, and learning how to be compassionate with yourself. I'm going to sit here for 30 seconds and just be with myself, even if I'm not sitting for 5 minutes or 20 or, whatever that is, right? Mindfulness is also not a technique. It becomes a way of life. It is this whole new lens through which we choose to see what's happening. And when you practice this state of being purely present with yourself, you start to see the world like an infant in a way, and purely. And that's what's called enlightenment, is when you can watch these waves of feeling come over you and not say, oh, I shouldn't be so upset about this. Or you can see people being triggered and you're not dragged into that triggeredness with them, right? It's just having that purity of awareness of what's going on. Mindfulness is not a religion. Some people kind of don't want to get into mindfulness because it has, it's been derived from Buddhist tradition, but it's taught as a non-spiritual path. And it can absolutely enrich and support any religion, any spiritual practice, any spiritual life that anybody's in. So now we know a little bit more about what mindfulness is, the details, and what it's not. And you can think back to maybe the beginning of when we started and what your ideas were about mindfulness and meditation and things like that, and how that's changed from then to now. So we'll talk about stress. So EUSTRESS is good stress. Some of you may already know this working in the fields that we do. EUSTRESS means that EUSTRESS is good. Like if they've studied people in work environments, and they have found that people who do not have enough challenge will not perform well, even at their very basic job. But if you give them more challenge, they'll do even better. Right? And so EUSTRESS is a good type of challenge. It encourages us to level up, right? But when that remains constant and it doesn't follow like the up and down bell curve that it's supposed to, then it's up here, and then we get the unhealthy effects of burnout, chronic illness, things like that. And so crossing that line from EUSTRESS to chronic stress, it can be avoided when we develop these mental strategies that cultivate resilience, right? And it enables us to stay motivated in the face of chronic negative stresses that are in our lives, and the constantly increasing demands and complexity and change that we're all experiencing right now, right? Statistically significant improvements in resilience show us that mindfulness tools and the content practiced regularly, they facilitate task performance, decreasing stress, a sense of connection. Even in these times, a lot of people who I'm working with right now say they feel a sense of connection to people more than ever once we start doing this mindfulness practice, whereas in the beginning of all of this shutdown, they were feeling so alone and isolated. And what they've done is developed a sense of connection through the mindfulness practice to all in this way. And that's one of the more advanced. When we get to when I'm working with people, when we get to class 12 or 13, we start working with this connection to all. And it's super expansive. And we suddenly, when we're isolated and alone, don't feel that. We don't feel that anymore. And so those statistics, the research, the science shows that when we do mindfulness practice, that we enhance our overall sense of well-being, our organizational performance, and all of that. I can tell you from experience that my connections with other people are clearer. They are easy. I attract amazing people. My friend circle used to be very small, and I used to believe that you can only meet a certain number of people in your life that are really your people, that are really going to be stand-up people and whatever. And now I have this massive, wide circle of friends who are all amazing, incredible people. Even customer service is different for me. I used to get shitty customer service every time I ate out at a restaurant, and I don't anymore. And I chalk this up to to the fact that when I show the universe that I want to receive loving care every day when I sit down for 5 minutes and I go out and interact, guess what I'm going to receive? Loving care from the Verizon guy on the phone, from the server at the restaurant, right? And so even the Verizon guy, I was cracking up with the Verizon guy on the phone a few months ago. Like, how does that ever happen? Normally I'm like, this guy was hilarious and he was so fun. And I'm like, I take credit for attracting and manifesting this type of person in my life because I used to not ever. And so I know that doing my mindfulness practice has definitely helped with that. And so maybe I'll take some questions before we move on. Yes, Barb.
Me, Deborah?
Oh, Deborah, sorry. I read Barb on there. I don't know why.
It's okay. It's okay. I just am curious how you work with people, especially if you're teaching them this with ADD and ADHD.
It works so amazing for ADD and ADHD. We start really small, and I have particularly broken down this class. So mindfulness based stress relief is the program that has come out of John Kabat-Zinn's research and is taught in hospitals across America, is taught everywhere. And so I've taken that program and broken it down, because it's normally like people attend a 2.5 hour or 3 hour class every week and they learn like 7 tools at once, and then they're supposed to go and apply this stuff. So I've broken it down into hour-long chunks where really it's like half an hour of that content. So I have 12 classes, and I really sit with people and really work on each of the very small steps at a time. And for people with ADD, ADHD, they have so much trouble being able to sit with their mind and observe it. And so we work on 30 seconds a day, right? And for my clients, they also receive email and text coaching. So every day with my clients who have a challenge with this, every day they get a little text. We check in, we say, okay, or we schedule an extra appointment every week to really check in and say, okay, what's going right, what's going wrong? How do we adjust the process to fit specifically for this individual and what they need? So basically, when I'm working with ADD, ADHD, we start small. And we really kind of we start where we can have successes. We can have these mini successes and we can feel good and we can see progress, rather than just like, I can't even do this, right? Because it's too much or it's too overwhelming.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Any other questions?
Could you spell John Kabat's name for us and recommend any particular book of his?
Yes. John is Jon. Kabat is K-A-B-A-T. I don't even know if that's how you say it. K-A-B-A-T. And then it's -Z-I-N-N. I always wondered, did he change that? Or was that really his name first?
K-A-V.
K-A-B as in boy, A-T. And then dash Z-I-N-N. I can even put it in the chat.
Is there any particular book of his you could recommend?
Oh yeah, book. Mindfulness for Beginners is good. Full Catastrophe Living is really good, but it's super thick and intimidating. So if you like big books, then I'd go for that one because it has a lot more detail. It basically outlines the entire program. So the Full Catastrophe Living is the big one, but Mindfulness for Beginners is that small starting place. And really, any of his books would be amazing that you can find.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna actually write his name in the chat, so if anybody missed it, they can get it. And let's see, Mindfulness for Beginners and Full Catastrophe Living. And that's the big book. Okay.
Are you familiar with the teachings of Abraham Hicks?
Yes, yes. That is where I learned so much of my law of attraction stuff from, probably all of it. I was very ill physically, and it was totally unexplained. And I was getting all these doctors who just wanted to hand me anxiety medication and all of this. And
That's pretty much how I found them too.
yes.
Allergic to everything.
Yes, and that's how I was. And so I started listening to Abraham Hicks. Like, I had every single CD like that they ever made, and was listening every day. And also doing the emotional clearing type sessions with Carl Mollison, and then creating these ways of applying things. Like, what I was learning, I was like, I'm really good at creating systems. So I was creating these systems of imagery and different things that I was doing to apply. And then I started to teach it. Then somebody said, "Oh my God, you look so amazing. How can I like get what you're getting? How can I start to manifest this?" Because I stopped being so sick and I start being more active. And even when I was feeling sick, I was still presenting in this whole new way. And so then the law of attraction I started teaching it, and it just snowballed because people kept asking. So I was like, let's put a class together.
It talks about being ready to be ready, and you were talking about that earlier. So
Yeah. A lot of my law of attraction stuff comes directly from them and what they talk about. They talk about using this moment, this present moment as your springboard to the next moment. And that's mindfulness. Everything that they teach is just being super present, being really present with what's right here. It doesn't mean that you don't have visions and goals and dreams and desires, but you also come to this place and say, okay, and I'm happy with what I have right here. Any other questions? I think the presentation is being recorded, and I am happy if Don and David, you guys want to share it. I see a comment. Joy was asking. So
Yes, I replied to that, and all our meetings are up on the YouTube channel for the second Tuesday Hypnosis YouTube channel. So they'll all go up there, and you can download them, if you've got a YouTube downloader. So everybody can get all of them, especially this one. So
awesome. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Mindfulness is not just about taking a break from the constant working of the mind. It's this way of relating to others. It's a way of talking. It's a way of interacting that changes everything. I'll give you a cool example. My sports fans will be excited to know this. In 1989, National Basketball Association coach Phil Jackson introduced mindfulness to the Chicago Bulls. By the way, I got this information from a research journal article in my PhD program. He introduced mindfulness to the Chicago Bulls. And despite suspicion among players, including Michael Jordan, who did not want to do this bullshit mindfulness stuff, Jackson insisted on using mindfulness to help with team building, to buffer against tensions, to unite team members, to have them focusing on their individual development, to contribute to the team. And from that year, the Chicago Bulls won 6 straight championships working under Jackson's methods. And then he moved over to the Los Angeles Lakers, and they won 5 straight championships because Jackson made them do mindfulness. We can be so much more connected, intuitive, in tune, and productive when we use mindfulness. And it's being proven all over the place. Google, Aetna, LinkedIn, Ford, all kinds of really big companies are using this, and they are reporting having more productive teams and all of this. And so I think that's just a good example for us. Even though we're not playing on a basketball team, I think it's still just like this really good example of, wow, we can increase our own individual performance. And not only that, we can interact with other people in a whole different way when we are practicing a mindfulness, applying mindfulness in our lives. And speaking of application, get it? Application painting. I love this picture. I was so excited to find it. Okay. I love when I find like symbology that's not like super direct, right? Okay. So we want to apply the strategy. We want to integrate the grounding meditation that we did in the beginning of this. And so it works best when we are using it in key transition time. So in the morning before I'm about to start my day, or after a challenging call and before a challenging meeting, whatever those times are, before I have to have a deep conversation with somebody or set some boundaries, or, whatever that is, transition times, and just taking 30 seconds to 5 minutes to begin with for my non-advanced meditators, just 30 seconds to 5 minutes to just do this exercise. Just ground into your body. Feel where your feet is supported. Feel the support the ground is constantly giving you. When's the last time you tuned into that, if ever, right? Just tuning in to that breath that's breathing you in the moment, right? If you are an advanced meditator, try to get rid of all the imagery, the affirmations, and just observe the mind. Maybe it's 5 or 20 minutes, maybe it's 45 or 60 minutes, depending on what your practice is. And even beyond that, you can start to label the thoughts as they come up, rehashing, rehearsing, right? Or I go into another one that's like analyzing, and I'm like, okay, it's not about the past and it's not about the future, but I'm really analyzing this like concept of something. And so like, that's my third category, right? And again, this is a totally different process from all other types of meditation. We are observing our thoughts. We're not trying to stop them or change them, because the mind produces thoughts like the mouth produces saliva. That's not stopping. That's not going to stop. You have to keep it wet in there, right? And so we have to just move into a space where we are separating from the mind and observing it in these ways. In a minute, I'll give you a bonus strategy that you'll be able to use, and we'll wrap up. But let me tell you a little bit about this. So mindfulness training has to be thought of in terms of training. We have to develop a regular mindfulness practice, and it can actually be enjoyable once we get it going, but it can be a little bit challenging to set that up at first and to be motivated and to continue to do it after you've done it for 2 weeks and all the newness is wearing off, right? It's like an athlete getting ready for a big game. And so they can't just stop practicing for like a month beforehand and then be ready for the game, right? And so we can't just do mindfulness practice a few times and be ready. We can't intellectualize it and listen and take it in and make a change. Maybe you'll be moved or changed from just simply hearing some of this stuff, but you will not experience the full transformational power until you're showing up day in and day out for yourself and you are applying the tools of the process. And so you can think of it too, like getting fit or healthy. If you want to be fit or healthy, you can't just read a health magazine, right? We wish. You can't just watch some exercise videos and then be fit, right? You have to actually show up at the gym, not just once, not just twice, a year long, right? Or months long before you even start to see, right, the different benefits. You'll start to feel better, but you won't necessarily see it showing up. So mindfulness is a little bit like that, where, we have to know that this is something that we are committed to, and it's something that's cultivated. It's like fitness for the mind. It's cultivated, and it has to be continuously cultivated, just like that digital world is continuously evolving and changing. Okay, so bonus strategy. This strategy is called the 3 Ps. It was adapted at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine, where the practitioners, that they were training doctors and nurses who were opening doors all day long, going from patient room to patient room. And so the doorknob became the anchor or their trigger for the 3 Ps. And so this requires us to choose an anchor for our practice, like I have my clients choose their phone or their water bottle. Maybe they choose a doorknob, whatever it is that they reach for a number of times a day, right? It could be the sink in the bathroom after they use it, whatever it is. But it's a matter of taking just one breath's length, not any longer than that necessarily. You can longer than that, and that would be great. But just taking at least one breath's length to pause. Take one moment for yourself, even if it's just a single breath, and let go of the planning mind, the task orientation of the day, and just notice the moment. How's my heart beating? What's my mind doing, right? Just checking in. So that's the second one, present, aware of what's happening in this moment. And there's always 3 things that are happening in this moment in mindfulness that we check in with. And that is, what am I experiencing? What sensations am I experiencing in my physical body? And then noticing the thoughts I have. In my mindfulness classes, we learn about the different types of thoughts that we're having, and we learn how to categorize them. We also learn that our thoughts are often narratives and stories, and that we don't ever have to believe them. And we have to just tune into our body to really feel. And then the emotions, just feeling, tuning in. What are my emotions like, right? It sounds like it takes longer than it does, but really you can do it in an instant. What's happening in my body? What thoughts am I having? What emotions are there? And then you can proceed, and now you'll be proceeding from a place of your values, that align with your values, right? If I proceeded without this pausing and checking in, I might say the wrong thing or do something messed up or whatever, because I have these emotions that I don't even know are affecting me from the last patient I saw or from the last whatever, you know what I mean? And so we now can respond more compassionately because we've checked in with ourselves and we've separated out from whatever those things are. And we are now the observer of those things, right? So if you want to think about what your anchor would be, you might make a note of that right now. What would my anchor be to pause, be present, and proceed in my life? I'll tell you about, we're almost done for wrap up. So I'll tell you about a couple of classes that I have. This is my favorite class, and I don't get to present it to everyone because it's one of my more, I'll say woo-woo offerings. This is an Oracle board workshop. This is where we make not a pretty work of art or even a vision board with our dreams and goals. This is a board that tells us about our goals. We do guided meditation where we meet our spirit animal and all of this stuff. And then we find and place images on the board intuitively without even looking. And then we take a shamanic journey through the 4 directions of the board. For example, the images in the south will tell you about your inner child and what you're shedding. In the east, they'll tell you about what your relationship with structure and the masculine is in your life and different things. And so it's a really, really great class. Some testimonials say, whatever my expectations were, they were exceeded. This workshop was extremely insightful and well worth your time. And then I found myself being guided by the universe and made discoveries about my life that I'm not sure I would have come to on my own. There was definitely some divine intervention going on. And this is how everybody feels that takes this class. It's really, really amazing. And I really love teaching it. That one starts in January. There's a class that starts in January, and then we follow up with the equinoxes and do some more follow-up and fun things. I also have a Delving Bravely group on Facebook. This is for people who are looking to be in touch with more of this inner realm that we're talking about here. And this is where we befriend our shadows and we stop trying to avoid and push away and resist those hard feelings and things. And unless you've built this mindfulness practice, we've got all this unconscious, right, stuff that's going on. And so in this group, it just has like inspirational quotes. We explore mythology stories that kind of revere this merging into wholeness with our shadow. And I offer a lot of free classes to this group because they are like my long-term clients. They are my closest friends. And I get to practice on them before I open to public services. And so this this presentation can be done, like I said, without all the law of attraction pieces and all of that. This is my contact information. This can also be done for, these mindfulness classes, or any of the practices can be done for private groups. I've had like girlfriends come and say, do our girlfriend weekend, or, different things like that. So it's not just my own teachings, but you can reach out and these practices, the development of a mindfulness practice, helps us to develop resiliency through facing our emotions head on, not stuffing them down, confronting them fully, because we don't want anything kind of lingering under the rug and waiting to come out later, right? And integrating mindfulness really gives you, if you think about sports analogies, like on the field and off the field training, like you have to be individually ready to be on the field, right? And so different people may have different issues, right? They're not sleeping well, or they have chronic pain, or different things. And so we have to look at individually the person before we can go out in the world and interact fully in that way. All right. We're not going to do this exercise because it's really long. It was my, like, if I have extra time, I'll do this exercise, but I want to leave some time for questions. Trying to figure out how to get back. Oh, there we are. Okay. Yeah, questions, comments, even about your experiences with mindfulness or meditation, how it relates to you, anything. I'd love to hear from you.
I especially like not especially like, but I mean, I appreciated the 3 Ps. And as you were explaining the 3 Ps, I was thinking, I could have used that a couple of times. And one of the times I got, because I got upset, I was upset with myself for being upset, because I was thinking, I'm better than that. But I didn't take the time to pause and like allow. And so, but I left the space, I left the group, I walked away. So I wasn't there being too stupid and upset. I got upset, but I walked away from that. But the 3 Ps, that was very valuable. The whole thing was very valuable. Thank you very much, Jenna. That was amazing. And it will be, as soon as I can get it, I do some editing at the beginning and end, some of the stuff, but I will get it up onto the YouTube site that we have. It'll be there for everybody, as all of them. And then watch it, like it, and I guess that helps the ratings. So, but all good. But you can download them too, so you can have your very own collection.
That's awesome. Any other questions or comments?
When you were talking about things that the big corporations are using and the sports teams are using, they're using the term flow states, or getting your mind into a place where you can just sail into that, like keep your ideas flowing and keep your, if you're in a game, keep your body flowing just from one thing to another.
Yes.
Seems to be the buzzword for the moment on some of that, but
yeah, it keeps changing. The mindfulness word is kind of starting to get this like woo-woo, like bad rap, I guess, in the business world. And so they're trying to, we kind of reword it, rebrand it, I guess. And which is good, which is great. I love that concept of a flow state and just being in that, like in that flow. And that's exactly how it feels. I cannot explain to you like how many synchronicities I have every single day. It used to be like once a week, I'd be like, oh, wow, that's a synchronicity. No, now it's like 5 times a day. I'm like, I cannot believe that this is my life and this is what's happening. Yeah. It's amazing. Anyone else want to jump in?
Jenna, Thank you. This has been so much information. And I mean, I agree with Don. I love the 3 Ps, get that thing that just kind of gets us centered. I've been using index cards with just something short like all is well. And it can just, I just have them up in different spots. And I see that and it's like it just triggers me now, like take that breath. But I love like incorporating beyond the index card now. And when I started meditating maybe about 3 years ago now, one of the first things that I learned to do was the one that's called no problem meditation. I forget the gentleman who has that program out, but it's doing what you said. And it was the toughest thing to do, was just to sit there and observe the thoughts and observe the thoughts and observe the thoughts and keep letting go with them. And it was probably like I battled that one. Talk about resistance. But it's very much what you're saying, is just observe and just be with it. And it was probably the best thing I did, because every meditation I've done since then, piece of cake. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Pam. Yeah, it is definitely a process. And in building my practice, the first year, it was like I would do it for like a week straight or 2 weeks straight, and then I wouldn't do it for 3 or 4 weeks. And then I'd come back and be like, okay, I'll do it, for a little while. And then I would get away from it and continue that. And even just a year ago, it transitioned to whenever really big things were happening, like if I was changing a job or moving or something, like I would kind of fall off of it and then come back to it, which is really silly because that's when you need it the most. And so now, though, it's just so consistent, but it's taken me 4 years to get there. You have to be compassionate with your process and just enjoy every step of the way of it, and developing that compassion that is inherent in the mindfulness program kind of gets you through that and helps you to develop that motivation to do that. Also, I like what you said about the index cards. I encourage all of my clients, and I'd encourage you too, to put on an index card, like you can write out the 3 Ps, or you can just write 3 Ps on it, or sticky note, and put them like 3 different places. And just remind yourself, like, okay, when I'm in any transition or whatever, I'm going to do the 3 Ps. I've had one like on a sticky note on the back of my phone, and I put my phone face down. And so every time I went to go pick up that phone, pause, be present, proceed. A lot of the times I'm like, I'm not picking up the phone. That's not what I want to do right now. That's not aligned with my value of being present, to my family or to whatever. Right.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I like that.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Oh, duh. Hello.
Yep, I see you, Deb.
First of all, I want to thank you for giving me permission to be mindful, because I've been meditating for a long time, and I try to meditate in the morning when my head's not filled with all kinds of stuff. And so, I want to be in that quiet space, and I want to, kind of be in the field. But then those, thoughts come in. It's like, no, I don't want to think about that now. It's not important now. I gotta meditate now. So thank you for the, permission to recognize and understand being mindful. Well, maybe that's something that I need to observe and just let go and whatever comes with that, and then hopefully get into my field place where I like to be as well when I meditate. But it's a nice balance there. So thanks, Jenna, so much. This is great.
Yeah, great comment. I love that. Because it's about observing those thoughts and then not judging them as, when we say no to something, we're judging it. We're judging it as unwanted or bad or, wrong. It's wrong for those thoughts to be here at this time because, I'm striving for this other thing that's not here apparently, right? And so then mindfulness is saying, just be present with those thoughts. And so you might, for my advanced meditators, might be starting to label those thoughts and then going back to that breath, back to that practice. And then even more advanced from that is we start to apply loving kindness to these thoughts that pop up. So like if I'm having a thought about even the mundane things, like my grocery list pops into my head. And so I'll say, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, sending love to myself in that. I must be thinking about that because I'm planning to control that later on, or there's something right in my mind that makes that thought pop up that my mind thinks that I have to, and it has some stress to it, even if it doesn't seem like it does, right? So, or those really stressful thoughts come up when I'm meditating, those things that I'm normally thinking about over and over again and trying to say, I'm not thinking about that right now, they will pop up, right? My challenging relationship with my sister or whatever that is, right? And so I can sit with that, and I can sit with all the things that I would label as wrong, like the angry thoughts I have toward her, or the, whatever, those things will come up, and I can just see them and be with them and know that that's not me. And that's not who I am. And I don't need to shove it down and stuff it away. I can just accept that that's there and open to it, and thereby open to the wholeness of me, not half of me that's in the light. That's okay. That's fine. I'm judging that as acceptable. And half of me over here, all of that's not acceptable, right?
Yep. Like what Don was saying, I know that that's not me, and this is not how I would typically react to something. But it doesn't change the core of, what you believe about yourself and who you are. So, and it's okay to be human.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I've not learned that more than any other practice than mindfulness. It's been amazing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It said even the Buddha.
I like that. It's okay to be human.
Yes. Yeah. I'm often telling people, they're like, oh, that was stupid. I'm like, or, that was a stupid moment. I'm like, no, you had a human moment. That was it. You just had a human moment, and we're all allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Ron, you had a question?
Oh, Brian, yeah.
A comment. I just wanted to say it's important for me to share appreciation, gratitude, and thankfulness when someone shares as much as, and just the idea of that whatever is there is something to be appreciated rather than judge it. Is it better? Is it worse? Is it whatever it is in this moment? And the importance of appreciation that we share, it unites us with the forces of the universe, I believe. So.
I agree too. I agree. And I think that I think that this is a theme in generations. If you can look back at the mythology, many stories are all about this integration of this dark and light. And really, I believe this is how we become whole, is to have gratitude for every piece of us, every part that's coming up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm so grateful to have been here with all of you, and I really appreciate being able to do it, being here, being so welcomed, and all the questions are amazing. When I teach this, usually it's like crickets, and I don't hear anything, and I'm like, come on, I know you have to. So I will tell people like, okay, I'm not moving on from this slide until I hear 3 questions. And I tell people things like, if you don't have a question by now, you're not paying attention to this presentation, right? Like, come on, people, ask questions. So thank you for all of your questions. I think they're amazing. And comments, yeah. Any last questions or comments or anything? Perfect. Yep, Pam, right? Yeah.
One other thing I was going to mention too, you had mentioned you've got the class, the Oracle Board Workshop, which for me personally, I've sat with the vision boards before and just kind of like not my thing. And I did an art class, and it was done, what you said about the one that you do, it was intuitively like going for the paint, eyes were closed, and we had done a meditation beforehand. And then she did what, you're talking about, is then, letting us know what things mean, that we, whatever winds up on the vision board. I don't mean whatever winds up. We know why it winds up there. And I love it because I just recently, in a group I'm in, we just did a vision board again, which I did it in my own way. I just drew pictures on an index card because I'm like, that's all I want to see. But I kept thinking, I want to do that art thing again, like something like that. So thank you for mentioning this. One of your classes coming up, because
Yeah.
yep.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. You can feel free to reach out at my contact info that I posted. Or, if you don't have it for some reason, Don or David can, put you in touch with me. And yeah, I am super excited about this class. It's my favorite class, the Oracle Board Workshop. And yeah, like you said, it's not a vision board. I actually went to my first one that somebody else was teaching, and had all this stuff in my mind of like, my vision board, I want to travel, I want to do this, I'm going to find all these great photos. I even came with some like images that I had, and then it was this, and I was like so mad. I was like, I wanted to make a vision board. But then by the end, my mind was just blown on this experience, and I was like, I have to teach this. This is so cool. So now I teach it.
And for me personally, vision boards, even the one that I did previously, it looked like clutter to me. Like I can't look at it for me.
Yeah.
And that's why I have an issue with it. I might outgrow it someday, but I love what you're talking about with the Oracle board.
Thank you. Yeah. I hope to see you there. That would be cool.
Oh, you will. I wrote down the January.
Yes.
Thank you, Jenna.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll make sure that that Jenna's website is also on the YouTube. When I put up the video on the YouTube, it'll also have Jenna's website on there. So you can click on that. Excuse me. Click on that and link over to that for that class and any other classes she'll be putting up there. So keep in touch there. I want to thank everybody for coming, unless anybody has any other questions. No. I want to thank everybody for coming. We'll have a meeting next month in December, but it'll be a little more casual. So I'll send an email out for that coming up later on. But Jenna, thank you so much for sharing your time with us tonight. This has been one of the best meetings the whole year. So appreciate your wisdom and sharing all of that. It's wherever we were when we started, we're further along down our path because of it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. It's been an honor.
And thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much, Jenna. Thank you for driving all the way down to the
Leaning Tower, where we meet every second Tuesday of the month.
Thanks for hosting this. Appreciate it. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Good night.
See you next month.
Bye.
Be safe.
Good night and good luck.